Go into Sunday's lesson. It starts off with mistakes. First mistakes that we could do in our home, and they use Hezekiah. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Hezekiah story found in 2 Chronicles 32 and Isaiah 38 and 39, to just kind of hop, skip, and jump through that story, King Hezekiah of the Israelites was great, rich, honored. Went to his head, began to disrespect, dishonor, not respond to the kindness shown. He was told by God that he would die, but Hezekiah begged and pled, and God answered his request, said, I'll give you 15 more years and I'll save you from the king of the Syria. So Hezekiah asked for a sign, because I guess he didn't believe God just saying it. So God caused the sun to go back one stair. He had a choice, forward one stair or back. He picked back because he thought that was harder for some reason than going forward an hour. Well, don't you know, the countries around have astronomers and so on, and they noticed that the sun changed, went back. So they also heard that Hezekiah was sick and had recovered. So what did Hezekiah do with this time, this extra time? We have to ask ourselves, was it wise to go ahead and give Hezekiah that extra 15 years? What did he do with it? So the king of Babylon heard about his illness and recovery, and they were watching the signs and so on, sent a letter with his son and some gifts to talk about this event. Instead of giving God the glory and teaching them about his Heavenly Father and what he had done for him and how he had healed him and all that, and giving God the glory, and without apparently asking God for his input in this matter, Hezekiah showed the envoy everything in his treasury. So the temptation, I will say, just jumping from that, the tendency is to show off by, say, our homes. You know, show just, you're there to see my home. Well, in this case, he thought the greatest thing I can share with these people is all of these wonderful treasures I've amassed. But God sent a message through Isaiah asking, what have you shown these envoys? And he said, everything. I showed him everything. And so he said, because you did, I want to say the Babylonians will be back and they'll take it all. Not only do they take all of the stuff, they'll take your own and progeny, and they will become, some of them will become eunuchs in the king of Babylon's, what do you call it? Castle. No, not castle. Yes, Rachel.
Maybe I'm taking what you're about to say, but there's a principle here that we see Hezekiah not obeying that Joseph did. So when he's called in before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, oh, I've heard that you understand dreams, and Joseph says, no, it's not in me. God will give the answer. And that was a principle, Sister White says, of Joseph's whole life, that he always kept his religion prominent. He never hid his beliefs in God. He always made them give God credit for everything. And same thing with Daniel. And I think it's so easy. I think about myself as a teenager. It's so easy to pretend that you're going along with the crowd, even though you don't approve. And Joseph didn't do that. He always made evident that he was a worshiper of the true God, even in a place where he was the only one. And that was Hezekiah's big opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And look at the king of Babylon. On the reverse side, he says, look at this great Babylon that I have created, and so on. And he spent the next 7 years as an animal. God really must have really loved Nebuchadnezzar. He put him through the mill. I mean, he really tried in every way he could think of to show him who God really is and to have him worship God as the true creator.
One of the chapters in the book of Daniel is written by Nebuchadnezzar, and I believe he'll be in heaven.
Well, God worked hard. He gave him all kind of information, and why God tries to get to the leaders is because they have such influence over, at his point in time, the entire world. And so he spared no expense, shall we say, in trying to teach Nebuchadnezzar.
That's why Daniel could say to Belteshazzar, you knew all this. It was not hidden.
So let me go back to here and say that ultimately the Babylonians did come. They invaded, they removed the Israelites from their nation, just as God had said. Also during that extra 15 years, he sired Manasseh, who was, the Bible describes, the worst king Israel ever had. So, you know, you kind of, if you ask for something from God and he gives it to you, I guess the moral of the story is ask with God's guidance in what you do and use what he gives you wisely. Yes, Eve. I'm so glad to see you, by the way.
Yeah, it's a miracle. Right for her, and here she is.
Here she is.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to stay away from everybody as much as possible. But you see a glimpse of Hezekiah's heart at the end. I mean, so if God tells you you're going to die, and you're like, no, please, you're begging, please. So God gives you more time. But you see his true heart at the very end of that story when God says, well, here's what's going to happen. And Hezekiah says, well, you know, this is great. It's not going to happen while I'm alive. You know, it's so self-centered. And, you know, I think it was God's mercy saying you're going to die. Because if he had actually died then, things could have been different.
Yeah.
Significantly so.
And this was the same Hezekiah that looked to the Lord and spread out the letter and how do I deal with this invading force, you know, the Assyrians, and really relied on God. You can see the ark. There's so many times when you look at the Bible and the ark of people's lives, they are trusting at one point, and you can see why Jesus said, you know, it's harder for a rich person to enter heaven, because in a lot of instances, Solomon, Hezekiah, a lot of people, when they got influence, honor, riches, and so on, that's where their focus went. And so you can see why God would not want very many people to be put in that position. But if you are in the position, like Abraham, for example, David, and so on, to use your wealth, use your honor and so on to honor him and to forward the message and so on. We have been very grateful for people who support this ministry. Very grateful. Did I see a hand somewhere?